the world of luxury and like the world that I come from, you know, which is I'm Mexican American, Chicana, like we have very unique, beautiful stories. We're artists, you know, and we know luxury, we know how to make things with our hands, but we're never really at the forefront of things. We're kind of just on the mood boards.
Welcome back to the Change Reaction Podcast. I'm Matt West. Now, we're always doing our best to share stories that inspire, and today's guest, Brenda Equihua, embodies that ideal. She's an artist, a fashion designer, and an entrepreneur by trade, but at her core, she's a storyteller and deeply committed to being a voice for her community and her culture. We've got Change Reaction co-founder Greg Perlman here with us to help connect the threads of how a fashion line and the Change Reaction are working together. So, let's get into it. Okay, first things first, Greg Perlman, welcome back. It's always nice to have you in the studio with us. We rarely get to see you. You're so busy doing all kinds of Change Reaction business, traveling, so it's always a gift when you're here. But you've really brought us a gift in today's guest. So why don't you set up the conversation and tell us how we got here today?
Okay, well, it's a pleasure being back, and I'm super excited for you to meet Brenda. And she is she's an amazing young woman. I met her through David Desai Ramirez, who is at a company called AltCap. And AltCap is a small business lender that really does smaller loans in the LA community for underserved communities. And kind of their business has been their CDFI. They've done really well for identifying people. And I have told him, if you come across people that don't hit your mark, that you can't give a loan to, or just that are super special, bring them to me, because I'm always looking to help young entrepreneurs. So he called me, said, I need you to meet Brenda Equihua. And she is just a rock star. And I said, yeah, I want to learn more. So she came to the office and she presented herself. I said, look, come talk to the team. We're having our team meeting. I think you were there, Matt.
It was such a wild thing to witness. Like I'd never seen anything like that in a staff
And I've done that
before.
a few times. I like to surprise the team, because people don't understand with the Change Reaction, we're so big and we were doing so many thousands of grants, you know, every year, tens of thousands. But then I pick and choose my own people that I connect with. And so then I'll just bring them in, and the team will be at a team meeting like, who's this? And so she came in, and I was blown away, and so was everybody else. And I just, you know, it's for me, I always say the same thing, that I feel like I'm so blessed to be in a position to do what I can do for people like Brenda. But I feel equally as lucky to have met you, to see people who are part of this community, which you know how much I love LA, and that are going to lift us up, that are providing jobs, that are fighting all sorts of obstacles to get through. And then I can just, you know, create just this relationship that you can start financially and go beyond. We're continually in communication, and I'm really, really excited to have her on the show today.
Such a great setup. Brenda Equihua, welcome to the show. What does it make you feel when you're sitting here listening to Greg just gush on about you?
I'm very grateful to have met Greg, and shout out to David, who's been like my angel too. I think it always feels nice to have people speak so highly of you, because I think for someone like me, I've always kind of seen myself as like a behind the scenes person, and somebody that's like just kind of doing the work. So to be perceived that way it's nice, because you're like, oh yeah, there's the other side of it, which is like, you know, like how people perceive the story when you tell it, or like how the world sees it, because we're so much in the like grind of it all.
Sure.
You know, so it feels nice. It's a really beautiful thing to hear.
So let's talk about the grind a little bit. Equihua is not just your last name. It's the name of your clothing brand. You are a designer by training and by trade. Like what you're wearing, I wish you could see this. It's really super cool. But you are a designer by trade.
Yes.
And you have a clothing design business that's in your name. And that's how you connected to David and connected to Greg. So tell us a little bit about where that was born and how that came about.
Yeah, Equihua is my last name, and when I was growing up, it was a very difficult last name to pronounce. So I think as I got older, I really started to own it more.
Okay.
When I started my brand, I knew that that's what I wanted to call my brand because it was so, such an important part of like how I identify, and how I grew up, and thinking about also like the European names that exist and how everybody like adjusts and adapts to saying Lacroix. I'm like, you can say Equihua too, So the brand really started, I will say, through my love of art. So I grew up pretty like traumatic childhood, single parent home, and my dad was not a part of our lives, and there were a lot of things that happened and during my childhood, and I didn't really know how to cope with it. And at the time, therapy wasn't really a thing. So, I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't something that we thought of as a way to help us cope with the things that we go through.
Was it a cultural thing or was it an access thing?
I think it was both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, culturally, I mean, access and culture sometimes go together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because my mom was an immigrant to this country, so, or like an undocumented person. Big correction, and so, we kind of started off in a place where we were, just on survival mode.
Right.
So the idea of therapy was not even something we could think about either,
Mm.
even if we wanted to do it. And also culturally, I think the body stores memory and all that stuff. And I think we came from a culture where it's just like, you just figure it out and you just power through it.
Right.
But we've learned a lot since then, like, I think as people in general, and like, as we have more access to information, like we understand the power of therapy.
Right.
I was using art as therapy, not really knowing that like that's what was happening.
Instinctively,
yeah. Like I just kind of went into my own little world. I really became obsessed with like drawing and painting and storytelling. And I didn't know that I could do anything with it until I was in high school. And one of my teachers recommended me to be a part of an art academy. And so once I was in the art academy, I was able to see what it means to have access to education, access to higher education, like, because we were learning things very differently. It was like AP art class. And we also had colleges coming in and talking to us about, how to get into college, or, we had, access to computers, like really beautiful, Apple laptops. And so that art academy really changed my life in the sense that I now was able to imagine myself as like more than an artist, but also a designer and somebody who was acquiring new skills. And now what do I do with this,
Right.
So I decided that I was going to go to Parsons. I didn't really know how I would do it. I just knew that was a school that I needed to go to if I wanted to be a serious fashion designer, and just kind of figured things out as I went along, and did as much as I could on my own to like, figure out how do I get into the school, and
which is part of that cultural upbringing of just figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah. And I was the first in my family to go to college. So there was really nobody to guide me through the steps. I remember I called Parsons on the phone.
Parsons, by the way, is pretty much top design school, and it's in Manhattan. So you're talking about also one of the most expensive, culturally different. I mean, not just, I'm saying culturally from your background, but like, to go into because you were raised in LA and Santa Barbara area. Then to go to Manhattan.
It's not just, oh, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go across the country to
the busiest place in the country.
Yeah.
It's a whole different
like,
culture
where
shock.
are the bees? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where are the trees? And it was really difficult. And it was also a very, became very evident once I was in the city and I was in the school with like kids who just had a lot of money, just how different our lives were, like I was working like 13 jobs when I was at Parsons, just to try to make things happen. So I went to Parsons. It's was really hard work, but totally worth it. Very valuable experience. And then I went to work at different companies. I have industry experience for like over 15 years working in luxury and like being a designer at different companies. And then I decided that I wanted to start my brand because I had been pretty much keeping like an archive of all of these beautiful ideas that I really loved. And I felt like I never had the space or the opportunity to be able to express them at any of the companies where I was.
Because you're working under somebody else's brand.
Working under someone else. And also culturally, I feel
Right.
like the world of luxury and like the world that I come from, you know, which is I'm Mexican-American, Chicana, like we have very unique, beautiful stories, textiles, art, like our community is like, we're artists, you know, and we know luxury, we know how to make things with our hands, but we're never really like at the forefront of things. We're kind of just on the mood boards, you know? And so I really wanted to shine a light on like, you know, what the kind of people that I grew up with and like the world that I felt like, you know, I lived in, that I wanted to see represented. So Black and brown communities, like, you know, BIPOC folks, like to me, it's very important to bring, you know, those faces to the forefront because I'm like, those are my superstars. Yeah.
I mean, you know, you could make a career staying in that arena.
Totally.
So
yeah.
to take the leap and say, no, I'm going to do this for me and I'm going to do this for my culture. I'm going to do this for my community. That's a wild step.
Totally. Yeah. And at the time, it was like 2016-ish when I was kind of developing things and thinking of what I was going to do. There was a lot going on politically too.
Right.
Which I felt like drove me even more to want to like really, you know,
represent
own my story.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm like, you know, you don't get to places alone. Like your community is a part of it, you know, and the inspiration and the love that I've gotten from my community is a large part of why I do the work that I do and why I've gotten to the next stage, you know. So that was a very important thing for me to do. And I happened to be at a time where Instagram was really like you could reach your audience to Instagram, you know. So I think that the timing was also very important because it basically cut out the middleman, you know, like the middle person that's, you know, when I was starting my career, we couldn't go direct to the customer unless you were doing it in person, and the internet was just like a different thing. And now it's like you could put your stuff out and everybody could see it.
There's nobody gatekeeping
There's
you.
nobody gatekeeping.
Yeah.
So now it's like, you know, it was a really, really good time. And it was also an important time to tell the story. And and everything about the brand has been an evolution of that kind of storytelling.
So people would look at you, right? And they see, I mean, this ensemble is unbelievable. Like the detail, it's incredible. They look at you, they see this amazing pedigree, this incredible portfolio, this unbelievable look, and they must think you're killing it. You're crushing it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to be an entrepreneur. And it's hard to be an entrepreneur in such a specific space,
right,
like fashion, and doing what you're trying to do, which is tell a cultural story through it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you're up against as an entrepreneur in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like, what am I not up against?
Okay.
You know?
Fair.
No, but really, there's so much that I also, you know, I'm inspired to tell this story because I think it's an important part of things we don't talk about, right? We just kind of put our brands out there and we launch these collections and people look at them and they're like, oh, so beautiful. What's the next thing? And you're like, I mean, just to get to this point, it was so challenging just to launch one thing, right? So you're up against your overhead versus your cash flow, you know, like, and the time that it takes to do things. So, you know, because we are also working on telling intentional stories and we are very specific about how we want to do things, those things take longer. And time is money, right? Every month you have overhead and then you you launch this collection, you have to have the right amount of units to make sure that it covers not only, you know, like the lead up to launching that, but also like what you're up against next or what you want to do next. And I think that's been one of our biggest challenges is basically capital to help us to get to the place where we can really, really, you know, grow our business, you know, so we're not just like catching up to things and then, you know, just having our, you know, like our head right above water.
And that's how it's been for
a long time. Okay. Yeah, for sure. And
did you get for your first collections coming out? What was your capital then?
Oh, everything has been self-funded, right? I don't have like an investor or anything like that. My very first collection was actually funded because my mom had passed away. And she had like left me money through her retirement fund. She worked at a hospital and she had a retirement fund and she split it amongst like my brother, my sister, and I. And so I finally had enough money to pay off my student debt. And then I had a little bit of extra money to do something with it. And like the crazy person that I am, I was like, I'm going to start my brand now with like this little tiny amount, you know? So I started my brand through just a very limited amount. I started it like when I didn't have a job and I had just a little bit of cash flow that my mom gave me. My mom left me. And then I just had learned so much up until then from like, you know, making patterns and digital design. And I had enough skill set to feel like, okay, I have enough here to be able to launch something, you know, even if I don't have all the answers yet. And I knew that I was only going to be so ready, you know.
You're never fully ready for the thing, right?
No matter what, yeah.
You really just have to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I'll figure it out.
Totally.
Get in, do the work.
Right.
I'll find a way.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was creating collections and I felt like I was still we're operating under the systems of what I had been taught, right? Like I was in the fashion system. I was creating these collections and I decided to take a little, not a break, but really to think about, well, what do I really want to say?
Now, were these collections like in the way that we think about it in high fashion, or were these more like capsules because of the size that you were?
Yeah, they were capsules.
Okay.
And they were small.
Right.
And they weren't like big moments. They were my first collection I launched with Moda Operandi, which was very exciting. And then after that, I felt like, I think I want to do things differently. Like, you know, I was selling shirts for $900 and like, you know, evening gowns for like $7,500. And there was just this whole other world that I really wanted to explore. And I wanted the clothes to be more accessible. And I wanted to be able to tell a story that felt more authentic to me. I had the skill, I had, you know, a lot of the good things, but I also was like, I really, really just want to own my story. Mm-hmm. And I really want to tell the thing that I need. I want to do something that inspires people, especially during this time. And so in order for me to be able to use my brain, I actually took a full-time job. So I took my full-time job because I didn't want to make decisions based on money about my brand. I wanted to just give it time and rethink, what am I going to actually do with this? And I'm going to go in and work at a full-time job. I was working in development for a bridesmaids and bridal company. So I was helping them launch their product. And I was, you know, after work working on my thing. And I was actually a really bad financial time for me. I was renting my bedroom to someone and sleeping in my living room. And I was like, I sold my car because I couldn't pay my payments anymore. I just was like, I just got to rethink this, like what I want to do with it, you know. But I got this job and it helped me a lot to get my brain back, you know, a little out of survival mode. And during my train rides, I was just reading a lot. I was thinking, I was journaling. I was asking myself the gnarliest questions. I was like, if you were a fish, what fish would you be? Like, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? And I was just kind of exploring my own identity and how I relate to earth and to life. And through the process of that, I ended up asking myself a question that really changed everything, which was, what is a classic in fashion? So that could be anywhere from like denim pants to, standard, cargo jacket to, a white tee. And I made this long list of what was, a classic in fashion. And then I made a list that was, what is a classic to you? Like in your life. And I wrote the whole thing down. And I didn't actually think anything would come of this exercise. Because again, I was just doing things and I didn't really know why I was doing them. I knew I was getting somewhere. I just didn't know where. And I knew the why. The why is to get something out of this. And I just didn't think about it anymore and kept doing other things. And then one day I was on my way to Six Flags with my brother. And I was sitting in the back of a van and they were playing music. And I told everyone in my family, I was like, can you guys turn the music down? And everyone was like, why? And like, I just had the most incredible idea. And it was like those two things that I had written down had married each other. Something from the classics and from my reference list became an item in my mind, which was I was going to make San Marcos inspired or San Marcos cobija jackets, puffer jackets, or a hoodie. Sorry, it was a hoodie. Because I remember I wrote down a hoodie because I was like, a hoodie is one of the most democratic kind of fashion pieces you can own.
Especially in Southern California.
Yeah, it exists in like, many different social classes. So it was the hoodie in a San Marcos blanket into a garment.
So let's talk about the significance of that San Marcos blanket.
Yes.
Just tell us for people who don't really know what that is by name, like where would people have seen it? And let's talk a little bit about the cultural significance too.
Yeah, the San Marcos blankets were started by a man in Mexico who went to Spain and saw these beautiful blankets in Spain, and he was so inspired. He was like, I want to go back to Mexico and I want to like create a blanket for my own people. And so he started to create these blankets that had images of the Virgen de Guadalupe and tigers and bears and roses and all these like beautiful images. It became very popular in Mexico for many reasons outside of the iconography and that they were blankets. It was also that there were not a lot of people that could afford like heating systems. So they were pretty heavy weighted blankets. So practical, but also visually appealing. And so they became these really beloved items, and they made their way to the United States, and became a very important part of the culture here, especially in LA, I feel like, Yeah.
So if you're driving around Los Angeles, you see a lot of people selling those San Marcos blankets with tigers and zebras.
You see them, and they're these kind of like really out there, I guess, very eclectic blankets. But in our home,
and they're huge.
They're huge. They're huge. But I think in like a standard, like baseline Latino home, they're kind of a neutral.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's because I feel like, our homes are very lively and very, there's a lot of color. And so I think that's why, for me, it was like, this is my neutral that I'm going to work with, and I'm going to do something cool with it. When I was thinking about it, I was like, man, like this could become a meme, very easily. It could become a joke, but I felt like it was in the right hands, because I was like, I'm going to treat this with the respect and the love that it deserves, and I'm going to create it into a luxury garment. At the time, I wanted to use the San Marcos blankets, but I learned that they shut down, so we weren't able to use them. And what was in the market, which a lot of people still don't know, are not San Marcos blankets. They are like other companies. They're now made in Korea and in Asia, and that brand doesn't exist in Mexico anymore. So I really didn't want to touch the originals because to me they are like historical artifacts. So we're working with the existing blankets that are on the market, and we created these items. And then as soon as we created them, I tested them in Europe. Actually, I went to a trip to Europe, and I was like, I want to see how these are like in really, really cold.
Why Europe? Like if
I was already going on vacation,
okay.
And I was like, I'm just gonna finish everything on time to bring with me. So I went. It was a really nice treat for me because it was like the first time I could take a vacation in a long time because I now had a job. Because remember, I have a full-time job, right. And now I'm like doing my line at the same time, that's a whole nother drama story. But
yeah, sure, let's take a vacation because you've got the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So I came back and I knew that I wanted to shoot the pieces with a very particular type of photography style. I wanted it to not be like a quote unquote fashion photographer. I wanted it to be somebody that's really good at capturing people. So I worked with Sean Mong on like creating the aesthetic for like what it would look like. And then I casted some street casting and some online casting of just a diverse cast. I really wanted it to be like, this is the world we actually live in, and these are our stories. And I really wanted everyone to feel seen, when these images came out into the world. And it was a very risky thing because the product was different, so were the images. But when it launched, I was very lucky that Vogue covered the story. And that really changed a lot for us. It kind of like made us escape obscurity because then we got more press from it too. Vogue and Hypebeast were the two that really, I think, understood like this is a very unique story, And then, obviously the driving force is always community because that's PR, right? But like I feel like it really resonated with the community, and I feel like a lot of people felt seen, and it was, I think, how we did it too.
So immediately you've got recognition, you've got people seeing your vision. And is that changing for you the direction and the path, or are you just sort of following the path as it opens up for you?
I think then I knew what my voice was about. I knew in that moment what I need to trust my intuition, and I need to trust that what I want to do and the stories that I want to bring forward are exactly the things I need to be doing. And there are people who want to hear these stories, and so that changed a lot for me. And the opportunities that I got helped to catapult that, because I got laid off after that. The Vogue wrote about it, which is obvious because I had a full-time job, and then it was on the landing page of Vogue. And I think my boss is always on Vogue. So it was one of those things.
A little bit of an ego.
I don't know if it was
moonlighting.
Really. After I got laid off, and this is like where I'm just like, I just feel so loved by the universe and by God. I'm not like a religious person, but I really believe that like, there are like angels or forces looking out for me, because when I got laid off, shortly after I got an email from Toyota, and they were like, hey, we want to do a commercial with you.
Wild.
And that was the first time I got a check, for something, for my brand. And I was like, thank God, because I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, and the brand has been a series of like these kinds of things, like believing and trying and doing the thing that feels like the thing you should be doing, and then not knowing what's going to happen, and then something happens,
So now pull it forward. So, so now you're kind of rolling. So pull it forward to your current project and how that was conceived and how you knocked down the door of one of the biggest organizations in the country.
Yeah. So around 2018, I created a prototype for the NFL, and I really wanted to, for the Raiders, like I had created a prototype, and out of the San Marcos inspired cobija thing.
Which is kind of perfect, right?
Yeah. I was in my studio and I was like, man, like, this would be so cool. And I created the prototype, and I looked at it when it was finished, and I was like, well, I really want to do this with the league. Like, I really, really want to create something with them, and I feel like I can. And this was before the Vogue story. It was I was just creating a lot at that
Sure.
time. And it was like, I think I can do it. I think I somehow can work with them. And I would just look at the sample every so often and be like, I don't know how people do it. I couldn't figure it out.
So you really just created this Raiders jacket as kind of a one-off?
Yeah, I kind of, my method is like I make it and then I feel like it will come to me.
Okay.
Yeah, like somehow, some way.
I mean, it's so steeped in so many different angles of like Chicano culture, right? Like
Yeah,
the Raiders
totally.
and the blanket. And
Oh
the-
yeah, to
yeah.
me it was like, this is so perfect, right?
Yeah.
And just even like just the NFL and Latinos in general, like, you know, they have like a really huge fandom base, you know? Like,
Well, they're playing huge games in Mexico now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see a lot more recognition of Latino and Hispanic culture within the NFL.
Yeah.
There's certainly like an effort there to
Yeah.
recognize and
Yeah.
call out that fan base.
yeah.
How did you get connected with them? Because it's a big leap to go from I made a piece to let's have a conversation.
Right. I mean, I didn't know how to get connected to them. I remember I would see people post like hey, we just dropped an NFL thing. I'd be like, oh, nobody's tagged. I don't really know how this works. And then eventually, like, I remember thinking like, well, I can't figure it out and I don't know how to figure it out. So sometimes I would just go to my studio and I would just look at the piece and then I would close it back up. And like,
Okay.
that was just like a weird thing I was doing, you know? Like, I don't know, it's coming. But I just knew that I had to focus on creating good product and telling good story. So eventually what happened is that I got invited to a Rams game out of nowhere, like from somebody in the NFL. And I was like, that pretty much started the beginning of the relationship. Like now I'm at a Rams game, like, okay, you know, and we didn't talk about anything at that time, you know, like I was not interested in kind of telling the whole thing that I had been working on and going into it that way. I was just kind of building, you know, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just knew like, cool, I'm at a game.
It's a
And,
cool experience.
it's a cool experience, you know. So now they know who I am, right? And then eventually what happened was that like they reached out to us. I told them our story. And at the end of the call, I was like, this is what I really want to do with you guys. You know, we had at that time had grown a lot in terms of how we executed products. So we actually created a new jacket and we created a 49ers one.
Okay.
My brother-in-law is a huge 49ers fan, and the 49ers had like all of the elements and the components for what we could create a really new cool jacket out of. So we got a call with them. Let's say we heard about it on Monday and we had a call with them on that Friday. We created a prototype, like super rush last minute, but beautiful, so that we could be like, this is what we really want to do with you, you know? And then nothing happened after that
Okay.
for a long time.
Which is like kind of maybe
Typical.
disappointing,
Or
right?
typical
No.
for these big organizations.
Sure.
No,
right?
I just kind
They're
of,
not on your timeline.
Right.
yeah, I think, they have so much going on.
You
They-
put so much energy and effort into the thing. Like, we're going to move fast. We're going to make this thing. We know what we want to
Yeah.
do. And then,
I think that I learned a lot of patience,
yeah.
you know, because it's a big organization.
Yeah.
You know, so they have so many things they're working on. And I'm like, I understand that we're not like a priority, you know, like their thing is football too, you know?
Yeah. It's a massive undertaking. Like
Yeah.
just to mount a game.
I was just happy that we even got on a call.
Right.
You know, so that from that point on, I was thinking, I don't know what happens, but I know that like something might happen. You know, we eventually sent the sample and then we just waited. And then eventually they reached back out and was like, we want to do this. We want to offer you a licensing deal.
So
And
cool.
it was the coolest thing ever. And it was very exciting because we exist in a different part of the league, which isn't like standard licensing. They have a special program for like smaller designers. So we were very excited to be a part of that program for the smaller designers, and we were allowed to do most of what we wanted in terms of design, you know?
I can think of like, I could rattle off 5 teams like right away where like it's such an instant connect. It's such a perfect fit. How many teams are you creating these jackets for?
We are creating them. The jacket specifically, we're launching with 7 teams.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you've now gone from this very small, independent, capsule focused brand to now having a deal where you're making officially licensed product for 7 teams in the NFL. To an outsider, they would say, well, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You've done it. But it's just kind of the beginning of a whole new set of challenges for you. Yeah.
I think that what I will say about the NFL experience is that all of our experiences with growth have been challenging too. Right. Because as you reach for bigger things, you are faced with a difference between the thing that you're doing and where you are.
Right.
And that distance is what creates a struggle, you know? So for us, it was like we were very ambitious about what we wanted to do, and like really wanted it to be, you know, pitched to as many teams as possible. And like we really wanted it to do strong storytelling. And, you know, we had our financial limitations, you know, and so the challenges were like, you know, operational things internally that we just didn't really have, you know.
So now you're back to the capital conversation where we started at the beginning of all this.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of other, I mean, we're not just doing the NFL. We have other projects that we're also working on. So everything requires capital, right? Like every month is overhead. We're doing a lot of things. And so it's like, you know, waiting to get paid and like all that stuff, you know, big brands, they have the capital to be able to wait on things, you know, and we just didn't have the luxury of that. And that requires money, you know?
So how exactly now is the Change Reaction supporting Equihua?
So David gave you guys a loan, you know, to get through this operation. And I know that was, you had additional roadblocks to get through this order.
Yeah.
And so we were in a position where, you know, he didn't know what we were willing to do, but I said I wanted to meet her and understand more about her. And so I asked her to put together a little bit of a spreadsheet of what she really needed. And, you know, we just decided, I kind of came in and brought her to the team and just decided to make it a gift. Just, you know, no questions asked gift. And then, you know, and then I kind of surprised her with an additional gift, but that one's conditional on her, you know, when she's making money, that she's going to bring that gift back to the Change Reaction. We're going to pay it forward together to her community for maybe other entrepreneurs like her, maybe other people facing other issues with the current immigration crisis. And so that's a handshake of a return gift. But it was really for me, like I said, it's hard. I don't know. I believe in the good of everybody, right? So, and we get frustrated, and I get frustrated specifically about people with wealth and not moving it, whatever. But I just say, well, they just don't know how to find the right opportunities to help people, which is what we've somehow created at the Change Reaction. So, you know, when I just see the story of perseverance and her beautiful energy, and I know she's creating jobs, and she's up against a huge conglomerate in the NFL, and I'm sure they're treating her better maybe than others because of the smaller design program, but it's still challenging. You know, I know people who've sold to Walmart and it sounds great, and then they get crushed. And so I was just like, hey, you know, I need to see you succeed in this community, and I just wanted to make it a gift. And so,
why is that so important to you?
It's important to me because, you know, I've come to recognize all the advantages of what that a lot of people have. Like when before the Change Reaction, I had the Always Up Foundation.
Right.
We put probably 600 kids, a lot of first gens, through college. And one of the reasons is because my kids were going to college, and I just kept thinking of being my kid and all the things that they got. Nothing was a worry. Writing the check for the tuition, coming home for Thanksgiving, boom, flights, this, do your dorm room, all the different things. So I'm seeing all that, and I'm going like, well, what about everybody else who doesn't have this? And so that was what we started. That was one of the reasons I started the Always Up Foundation. So I've just seen compounded advantages, I call it, versus compounded disadvantages. And I just couldn't let, once somebody gets into my, scope, call it, then I just feel it's incumbent on me to try and carry them over the threshold to be successful. I mean, obviously there's always limitations, but it's not, I know how big and important the gift I gave you was.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
And
we have a beautiful campaign because of it.
And I want to do more. We almost started a whole division to do it and it never really took off. So, now I've got one.
Yeah.
And, I'm picky. I don't like just handing it, but Brenda took me right away. And I just felt, I have one of my best friend's wives went to Parsons and she's, was a big designer, Alexander Wang, and you remind me of her. And so there was just a lot of connections of that. And I just felt like I wanted to do something with her. And I'm now introducing her to other people, setting up with mentors. Wade at the Change Reaction is setting you up with somebody. And we just want to make sure you succeed. So it's not just capital, it's love, it's hope, it's introductions, it's everything.
Yeah,
it's networking. And that was kind of the one thing, by the way, at the Always Up. What I realized is that it never stops these compound advantages, right? So it's the same thing with her, with Brenda, is that she doesn't have the network. Yeah. She doesn't have it. She didn't have the network growing up and she's building a network. So I'm happy to not just give money. I want it to be all resources that we can do to make you succeed.
Yeah. And the way that it's happened is like so quick. Like I couldn't believe it. Like already just being in that room, there was like so many people that were like, hey, like, how can I help you? I know this person. I know that person. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is incredible.
What is that like for you? Right. You've spoken so much on the power of community, right? And community as your inspiration, right? Being behind you and encouraging you and putting oxygen on that spark of a dream, right?
I couldn't do this without community,
What does it mean when basically a stranger sees what you're doing and sees your vision and is willing to go all in with you?
It's so beautiful to me because I think for a long time I've been used to like pouring a lot too, and like to have somebody that knows more than I do, or to have like the resources, like the network that I don't have, and for them to so easily, without it being like, well, like I want in on this or I want in on that, I want a percentage on that. You know what I mean? And to have it just be like, this is a resource you can just have. That's like unheard of, without somebody wanting something in exchange, We talked before the show how you're involved in your community. You're involved in nonprofit work as well. Yeah. So you're already wired the same way as everybody working at the Change Reaction, right? Putting your time in, putting your expertise, your knowledge, your passion in. When you receive something like this, which is different than the act of giving it, how does that sort of change the energy for you? Oh my God. Thank you for asking that. It actually makes me feel like, okay, I'm worthy of receiving. I'm worthy of that. I'm worthy of getting things and training my mind to also receive more. You know what I mean? As a person who's always thinking about like, how do I give? Or like maybe like feeling kind of like I have this resource and I have to spread myself thin. And like, I don't know if I put this out, like how much sometimes it feels like you're always measuring things. Mm-hmm. So to be able to be given something without it being something that weighs, it's just like, it was just such an easy experience. I didn't have to like climb through hoops and do all this stuff. It was just like, I tell my story and people hear it and they're like, we want to help you, and it inspires me to want to do that. Like to hopefully someday through all of these opportunities, get to a place where I'm able to do that for people too.
Oh, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. I want to do that one day because it does feel good. Inspiring. I said, I'm like the luckiest person on this planet that I get to do this. It does make me happy. I'm so fulfilled. And I know so many other people could feel it. They just don't yet. So it's still my mission to kind of crack those folks. But I feel it. My family feels it. And this is kind of what we're here to do. And so, it's this is going to be the beginning of a long relationship. I'm certain. And that's pretty much the best value that I know I can get, being where I'm sitting, is getting to meet young people like her who are changing the world.
So if folks want to get connected to the collection for the release and all of that, we're going to have all of that information in the show notes. And just Brenda, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And sharing your story and telling the story of your community too.
Yeah.
It's so important that you have this gift and you have the ability to carry that story through in a way that most people don't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, no, I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
I know that it's a position of privilege that I'm in to be able to speak about it. And thank you so much, Craig, for everything. Like, really, like we were so appreciative of that, and and inspired by it more than anything else,
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I didn't even know that this existed, and I was in shock at how what a different process it was to get this money, because I've applied to a lot of grants and they're just so crazy what you have to go through, and for a no. And for a no, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're changing the path of the way giving is done. So hopefully we lead others there, but we don't need to right now. We're still looking for more opportunities with people like you to help. So that's why I have a permanent smile on my face, and it's wonderful to have you to see what you're going to do. And I'm looking forward to future collections, and hopefully the NFL even takes off further. So this is great stuff.
I hope so. Yeah.
Greg, I love it when you come around. I love it when you bring somebody around like Brenda.
Yes.
Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely.
What did I tell you? Brenda's an incredible storyteller, and you can see more of her work and her designs by checking out the links in the show notes. Big thanks again to Greg Perlman for introducing us and for joining us on the show today. If you want to follow along with all the goings on at The Change Reaction, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us over on Instagram. All the links are in the show notes. I'm Matt West, and we'll see you next time.